Something I've always found interesting is the wonderful world of sociology. I promise this will make sense in an RC context in a second. It's the study of why large groups of people do what they do, believe what they believe, and stick with what they want to stick with. It's important to note though that when I say people, I literally mean a group of people, not individuals. Now, how does this pertain to RC? Well, even though we are, as RC racers, a very small community in the grand scheme of things, we aren't immune to this idea of sociology. We do things based on what others in the community do and what they think, regardless of what you might say. A good example would be the short course craze in the early 2010s and the base design of a lot of professionally painted bodies these days. This extends to different things in the RC world that have come and gone, and other things that have stood the test of time. In this video discussion, I'll be talking about current RC trends, or a couple of them, while making what may be horribly dated predictions about whether or not they'll be here to stay. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the sponsors of this channel, A-Main Hobbies, Cow RC, RC Trophy Chasers, and Peach State Hobbies. Anything you guys purchase using the links in the description below will directly support me as well. Let us begin. I want to start with a very recent trend and push from a few people in the RC racing world, and that's the 8th scale short course truck. Now, it's important to note that the 8th scale short course truck idea isn't necessarily new. When the short course craze was going on back in the early 2010s, it wasn't uncommon for different brands to make short course trucks that looked like their 10th scale counterparts, just bigger though. Different trucks like the 8th scale Apache from HPI short course truck, and of course the SC8E from a Team Associated. In the racing world though, unfortunately 8th scale short course trucks didn't really catch on, as there wasn't really much of a point to them, as 4x4 short course trucks in the 10th scale space were already very popular and can handle both 10th and 8th scale tracks. Mostly. In the bashing world though, they seem to have been making somewhat of a comeback with the addition of a couple SCTs from Arma and Traxxas, those being the Mojave and Max Slash respectively. Now I know the Max Slash is considered 10th scale by Traxxas themselves, but trust me, it's much more 8th scale in size, as arbitrary as that can be most of the time. It's also important to note that the large scale area of RC, that being 6th scale and bigger, short course and short course style trucks were still popular for a very long time, even after the short course boom began to die down after the 2010s. Moving on to the racing world, many people have tried to bring back 8th scale short course trucks with various success using custom parts and builds. However, a few people have taken to using techno buggy arms and suspension components, putting them on a truggy chassis with old school trugging body mounts so you can use 8th scale short course truck bodies. Now, this isn't entirely a new idea or even build. RC Network did this build about 7 years ago and called that series the DB48, I think. Please correct me if I'm wrong. The only difference this time is that the SCT body is being used instead of a rock racer body. It's also important to note that whereas some people used 8th scale buggy wheels and tires, other people use rock or 8th scale SCT wheels and tires. Whichever one you decide to go with will mostly depend on whether or not you value practicality or looks more. Personally, I like the idea of running buggy wheels and tires just to keep the cost of the conversion down, and so I can use all the tires I already currently own. If you actually want to make this conversion, I will try to find a parts list somewhere and put it in the description if again I can find one. If not, I will let you know now that if you want to build one with techno parts, which is by far the cheapest and most accessible way to do so, you're going to need parts from 3 different cars: the truggy chassis and body mounts, the buggy suspension components, and the short course truck front and rear bumper. So yeah, even though that's the cheapest option, it's still not exactly cheap. Whether or not this will become a very popular class will entirely depend if people are willing to either race their Max Slashes and Armor Mojaves, or are willing to spend a lot of money on a conversion kit that will perform better, but will cost a dummy amount of money if you're starting from scratch, or if Techno just decides to make the kit in the first place, which is also an option apparently. I'll file this under I hope it takes off, but it probably won't unless certain criteria are met. Moving away from 8th scale for a bit, now I'd like to talk about some indoor 10th scale racing, particularly on whether or not indoor dirt tracks will endure or will carpet and turf take over completely. Now, I made an evolution of RC track surfaces video a little while ago now, and in that video I mentioned that one of the reasons why indoor track surfaces became more acclimated to slick tires was for a couple reasons. Mainly to make the tire choice easier for newcomers and easier to develop for manufacturers. The problem arises when it comes to track maintenance, as keeping a dirt track going and optimal is pretty difficult at the best of times. And I don't really need to tell you right now, we are not really in the best of times. Because of this, indoor tracks are really hurting in many places around the country. So they are looking for as many different solutions to reduce the costs and time taken up by different parts of running an indoor track, including track maintenance. One of these solutions is going with carpet or AstroTurf. This seems to tick all three of the boxes I mentioned earlier. It's easy to choose tires that will work every time you put them on the track, regardless of temperature or track conditions. It's easier for tracks to maintain a carpet or turf track compared to a dirt track, and much cheaper because there's no need for big construction equipment or earth movers to move dirt around for different layouts or track repairs. The only thing that may be off is the fact that carpet and turf tires may be a bit more difficult to manufacture compared to slicks, but then again, that may not be the case as carpet tires are usually cheaper than their dirt counterparts. There are some other problems though that carpet has compared to dirt. For one, it has to do with the extreme levels of grip you can achieve with carpet. Now you may be asking, how is this a bad thing? Well, there are a few reasons. One of them being the fact that the speed you're able to achieve with a mod motor specifically is quite simply too much for pretty much everyone to handle, even pro-level drivers. And to add on to that, cars weren't really built to handle those speeds yet. There have been some different incidents at places like EOS and very recently at INS where the level of speed was a huge factor in contact between cars that ended up ruining someone's race. Now there is a solution to this, but we'll get to that later. The other problem related to carpet is the single line nature that carpet tracks tend to have. On a dirt track where speeds are naturally slower and the track changes over time, be it in small or large increments, the line can change and even have two different lines that you can take depending on the situation around you. Furthermore, if you happen to make a small inputs mistake, you're not punished as bad as you are in carpet. On many carpet tracks, even the slightest misinput can be disastrous for both you and anyone who happens to be near you, as I said before. Now, what are some solutions to this problem? Well, for one, there's the abandonment of carpet altogether in favor of AstroTurf. Turf, in my opinion, is a better race surface for off-road racing compared to carpet for a couple reasons. For one, the grip is a little bit less, so racing is a bit closer, but the tires used for turf and carpet tend to be very similar, if not exactly the same, with some overlap. Also, since AstroTurf is a bit thicker and has some give to it, if you crash on it, it tends to be easier on parts. Lastly, if you get used turf from different sports centers after they're done with it, it can be dirt cheap compared to regular EOS or CRC carpet. The two big issues with turf though is that if you buy it new, it can actually be more expensive than CRC carpet, and you have to buy the right type of turf to avoid lint buildup on cars and strands of astrofibers getting stuck in drivetrain areas. The other solution to this issue of too much speed and grip also lies in, well, limiting the grip, specifically by basically only allowing slick tires to be used on carpet tracks. Slicks don't have as much grip on carpet tracks because they're simply unable to bite into the carpet to create grip like other carpet and turf tires do. This would make the usage of extremely low turn motors, like what was used at the last EOS and other carpet events, simply unviable. It would reduce speeds just enough to allow for pro divers to race closer, tire choice would be even simpler and gluing them would be a lot easier. It would make it easier to hit the weight limit as slick tires are much heavier than regular carpet tires, and carpet tracks wouldn't deteriorate like they do now after continued usage. Overall, I think that with a few tweaks to how we do carpet tracks for 10-scale racing, it doesn't need to be the end of days type scenario many think it is. As for dirt tracks, they'll probably still be around, but nowhere near the same level as they used to be. In today's world for indoor racing specifically, they just aren't really viable for most people looking to build a track. Before you guys go, I have but one simple request. In the comments below, I'd like you to tell me a current RC noun, person, place, thing, or idea that you think is nothing more than a current fad, or if you think it's the paving way for the future of RC. In the next video, I'll be featuring those comments, so if you'd like to be featured there, be sure to comment as I do indeed read them. It's also important to note that since I don't really travel outside the North American continent too often, both I and this channel have a very US-based perspective, and perhaps even US-based bias. As such, other perspectives are very much appreciated. The last thing I'd like to say is that we are really close to 10,000 subs, and I have something special in mind planned for you guys, so be sure to help me to get there by subscribing if you haven't already, and like the video if you enjoyed it. Also, if you'd like to support me another way, you can become a channel member or active patron subscriber. Speaking of which, I'd like to thank my active patrons Michael Williams, RC World Discord server, Dave Armstrong, Rob Bedingfield, Caden Merks, Ian Petrie, Buddy Howell, Jeffrey Kunz, Shane T. Ruth, Gable Barber, Freeman Racing Team, and my current channel members, Jeffrey Kunz again, RC Trophy Chasers, Ralisk86, Claymore RC, Brian G, and especially Morrison Watt. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Seriously though, I got to drive a Max Slash around the track for a little bit, and it was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had in an RC. I can't imagine what it would be like to actually drive one of those things when it's set up for the track. Specifically a Techno, but you know what I mean.